I really don't want to use the microphone.
That's
so
fine. It's just
I
there.
prefer to just walk around
Do that.
on YouTube. All right. Why don't we start prayer? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for these young adults. Thank you for our time together. Holy Spirit, please guide this talk and our conversations. Lord, help us to have the ears to listen to whatever you're calling us to hear today. Mother Mary, wrap us in your mantle as we pray together. Hail Mary, full of grace,
The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
How are you guys doing?
Good. Sashtastic.
Sashtastic.
Yeah.
That's a new one. I like it. You're like halfway done, right? That's awesome. Getting to the point where you're just like, I can't take another screaming child. It's hard, but I believe in you. This is like the final push, and then you're gonna be really sad in August when you're just back at school or doing whatever. Chaotic fun. I love it. Well, thank you for having me. I definitely see some familiar faces. Where's my Chelsea kids at? Wow, that was so pathetic. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, most of the instructors, exactly. Some returners back when I used to work here. I see you. Lots of new faces. But thanks, Chris, for allowing me to come. So for those of you who don't know me, I just want to talk a little bit about who I am, why I'm here, just so you have a little taste of where I'm coming from when I talk about the topic today. So I was born and raised in Virginia Beach. Military family, didn't get to move around a lot though, so I was pretty much there my whole life. Great community, definitely a lot of faithful people, but a lot more cafeteria Catholic, laid back compared to up here. When I came up here, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I came up to this area to study at Shenandoah University, 2017. I studied psychology and public health, which are like the two most wacky majors that you could pick at a secular school. So it was challenging, but awesome. I learned a lot, and I really loved those subjects. The summer after my freshman year, I remember calling my parents and saying, hear me out. I'm going to go work at this parish camp. It's like the first year. It sounds like it should be successful. I'm going to live with an 80-year-old woman, and I will not see you for quite some time. And they were like, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. And it was one of those moments where I kind of felt like I was jumping off a cliff, and Chris Ricketts was jumping with me. And it was definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made, because that was the year that I really became integrated in this awesome Catholic community. Fast forward through COVID summer, let's not talk about that. And then I came back up here. I was the director, on this position, the co-director, for one summer. And then I got a call from Chelsea Academy, decided to take it, and found myself living in Front Royal, a place I never thought that I would be. Front Royal people, nice, good. Ran into a lot of tractors on my way here, like home sweet home. And then I've been there for 3 years, so I'm going on to my, or 2 years, I'm going on to my third year at Chelsea, where I get to do all the fun stuff, student life, outdoor things, counseling, teaching biology next year. So it's been an adventure. And I tell you all of that so you have a little bit of background to know that I was not always in a strong Catholic bubble. I went to public high school. I went to a secular college. And today I'm going to be talking about living in the world, the real, crazy world, but not being of the world, right? Not struggling with over-identifying with it, feeling bogged down by it, etc. And just our mission, right, as young people. Why does it matter that we're in the world and not just all together as Sash buddies every day, all day, right? So the big resource I'm going to be using, highly recommend if you're looking for a small book to read during adoration, or just a general spiritual guide. Anyone know Father Jacques Philippe? Anyone heard of him before?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's awesome. He has a lot of his books are like this. They're really small. So this is a retreat he gave about St. Teresa's philosophy. St. Teresa's my girl. I love her philosophy a lot. And I found this book to be really helpful. It's pretty simple, but it's one of those books where it's simple but profound and thought-provoking. And I picked this topic. I hadn't read this book in a few months. And then after I picked the topic, I kind of picked it back up, and the next chapter was all about living in the world as young Catholics. That was pretty cool. So I was like, okay, definitely going to talk about that. It'll be good. So when we say living in the world, what do we really mean by that? We're not just talking about physically being here. We're more referring to the social climate that we're in, society, mainstream culture. The world where it's full of political ideologies, social influences, secularism, a lot of deeply anti-Christian values, where we might find ourselves feeling like any weakness or fragility will just put us out of the game real quick. So I want to talk through specifically some temptations that we face as young Catholics dealing with such a secular and challenging world, and then how that fits into our call. So I'm speaking a lot from experience. Like I said, there was a couple years, actually most of college, I was in a place where I was not surrounded by like-minded people at all. I was like the Jesus girl who everyone thought was crazy. And there was a lot of fighting for what I believed in, and I encourage all of you. Some of you are probably in those colleges already, or going to be going there down the line. And you know what it's like. It's difficult. And when things are difficult, we have some natural responses. And the first one I want to talk to is our favorite one, just to ignore it, just to flee away. I think I've noticed a lot of, especially older generations of Catholics, just kind of completely secluding themselves from it all and just saying, you know what, the world is falling apart, and then we're over here. And I hope God comes next year, because this is just not happening. You know, it's not going to get better. That attitude, right, you can understand where people are coming from with that attitude, because you look around and you're just blown away. But that attitude is not a productive one, right? It really gets us nowhere, and it breeds a lot of vice over virtue. So I don't say this to say that you shouldn't have a good community, right? It's really important that you all work hard to have a really solid friend group that believes the same things that you believe. You should all have a role model, at least one, a person that you look up to spiritually, someone who's a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and making sure that you stay close with that person, even if they're miles away, even if you go off to college and you just have to FaceTime them. That is important, right? But if that is your only community, if you're only around and talking to people who are just like you, how are you going to change the world, right? How are you going to be a good disciple as you're walking around each day? I'm sure a lot of you have had campers who aren't Catholic or religious at all. Do you feel like that is true? So even just this job is putting you in that very, very special position where you might just be throwing a ball around with the kid, but you're a strong Christian individual who is being that strong influence for them. And God willing, you're planting seeds that might come to grow later down the road. You guys all know who Pope St. John Paul II is. He loved the youth, and he always spoke about how much power we have, probably because we're all really young and full of energy in life, and that is a very outward way to get people to listen to you and to want to be around you. So I wanted to read a quote that I stumbled upon. I think he said this at a World Youth Day. It's kind of long, so bear with me, but I think he says what I'm trying to wrap up very well. He said, "At this stage of history, the liberating message of the gospel of life has been put into your hands, and the mission of proclaiming it to the ends of the earth is now passing to your generation. Like the great apostle Paul, You too must feel the full urgency of the task. Woe to me if I do not evangelize. Woe to you if you do not succeed in defending life. The church needs your energies, your enthusiasm, your youthful ideas in order to make the gospel of life penetrate the fabric of society, transforming people's hearts and the structures of society in order to create a civilization of true justice and love. Now more than ever, in a world that is often without light and without the courage of noble ideals, people need the fresh, vital spirituality of the gospel. Super refreshing quote, right? He's reminding us that our call is not just to be, it's not just to survive, but it's to live with enthusiasm and joy that is actually captivating to the people that you come in encounter with. This has never been an easy call, right? Since the beginning of time, Christians among pagans, Jesus knew when he called everyone, saying, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. That feels so real some days, right? But he quickly comes in with tenderness and reminds us that in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. So when we're talking about facing all of these hard things in the world that are coming at us, you need to remember that passage from the Bible, right? That at the end of the day, there's nothing for you to be afraid of. There's nothing for you to feel like you have to go into hiding and retreat from, because God already overcame it. You can rest assured, if you're going to bed at night, that the weight of the world is not on your shoulders alone, right? He's helping you carry that through. And he will give you the wisdom to say the right things when you need to say them. So the second biggest temptation that I've found is to fall into despair. I'm sure you've all felt a pit in your stomach when you've turned on the news or went onto social media and absorbed some of the things that are happening in our culture. Or when you just want to buy a coffee and then you're bombarded by a social ideology being shoved down your throat. And you're just like, I just want coffee. This is not supposed to be political, right? But that's everywhere. Do you guys feel that? Even in a strong Catholic community like Winchester, Front Royal, still something that's really present to all of us. And a lot of times we can fall into just losing hope for humanity and just not really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. This attitude is dangerous because it hardens our heart. It prevents us from actually recognizing God's grace in our lives. And when he does place strangers into our days to teach us things and reveal things about ourselves, if we're so closed off and just in despair all the time, we're not actually going to be receptive to that. We're not actually going to see that. So it's a twofold call, right? You need to be able to fight the good fight, but you also need to not lose the purity of your heart, right? Because it's not helpful to just be that angry Catholic who's like screaming at everyone and just so, up in arms all the time. That's not actually something that's going to help anyone progress forward. So the key is to find balance, right? Balance is good in pretty much all things, because if you fall to either extreme, you're just going to lose people, and you're going to be so wrapped up in emotion that you're not actually going to be logical, right? So finding the balance in your day-to-day life is super, super helpful. I oftentimes find myself, I've been in some arguments with people. I had a freshman year of college. I took a Christian moral ethics class. It was taught by a Methodist ordained minister. I didn't expect it to be like classic. Okay. I totally feel that. You see me every time. I went to this class not expecting to be Catholic, but it was like, okay, Christian moral ethics. We're pretty much going to be on the same page. And my professor was just crazy. He got fired the next year. Makes some sense on, this is not new. But I remember having a conversation with him. I was really fired up because he had said in class that, in the same class, he said, if you are in the military, you're going to hell. And my dad's in the military, so I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, he did not believe at all in the just war theory, anything like that. And he also said that Catholics are literally the worst and that we will destroy the world. Really insensitive and just aggressive, right? And so I'm kind of talking to him after class, trying to reason and just express how what he's saying is wrong. But I found myself just boiling with anger and resentment and starting to use fighting words that were not actually going to be productive. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in that situation or not, but one thing that's helpful is to try your best to take a step back and gather your emotions and then come back into the conversation if you can. I know sometimes it might be a random person on the street, but if it's someone you can come back to them. I ended up just writing a paper on the whole matter because that was our next assignment. And that was a great way to not be over emotional about it and to get my point across and for him to listen without it being a fight. So try your best to have charity and to not always come across with pure aggression, right? You do need to be vigilant against the evil that is throughout this world. I'm not saying that it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? You're going to see the devil working in very clear ways. And there are going to be plenty of times you have to put your foot down and be really stern and strong about where you're standing. But there also are going to be times where it might be best for you to just listen for a minute and just try to see where the other person's coming from so that you can have a productive conversation instead of just everyone yelling back and forth at each other, which is the lovely world of social media, am I right? It's just like, let's just get on our keyboard and scream at each other, not even read what we're saying. We'll get there later on in this talk. But St. Therese, in this, Father Jacques Philippe refers to a lot of her quotes, but this one particularly, she put it nicely by saying, I want to love you like a little child, but I want to battle like a warrior bold. So, again, having this balance, remain closely to the heart of God, and He will give you the peace and the wisdom to fight the good fight when you need to. Another important thing as you walk this earth and are challenged by society is to remember that God will grant you grace in proportion to the difficulty of the situation. So as times are harder, graces are going to be abundantly more powerful. Have any of you guys experienced that before as you're carrying bigger crosses? Maybe you haven't, and sometimes it takes years for you to see the fruition of how your crosses are actually building you up. When I was praying about this part of the talk specifically, I was reminded, I kind of forgot that this had happened to me. I don't know if you guys forget traumatic things in life just out of like a way to heal. But I forgot about this time or the fact that I had been homeless twice during my high school or my college years. And I was thinking through the two different times that it happened and how I had grown between them. So the first time, there were just unfortunate situations. I was like totally okay, guys. I was just living out of my car, couch surfing for periods of time. But the first time it happened, I thought my world was ending. I was crying a lot. I was emotional. I had to start school in like a week, and I had no clue what I was doing. And I felt really abandoned by God and just super upset in general. I ended up going through it, carrying on with life, had an awesome place to live. And then 2 years later, pretty much the same thing happened, where I had everything set up. It fell through. I had nowhere to go. And I had to, at that point, keep working and act completely normal, like nothing had ever happened. And that second time, I remember like 3 weeks in, someone told me, you're handling this surprisingly well. And I realized I hadn't cried once. I hadn't gone to God once with like, I can't believe it. I was more just like, well, we're going on an adventure. I don't know what's happening. I'm very insecure and humbled by this experience of, not being in control of my life at all. But it really hit me that second time around that God, most likely at some point in your life, is going to strip you down to what feels like nothing. To the point where all you're going to have to do and all you can do is rely on Him for complete total strength to get through whatever situation you're going through. And that's a really powerful thing to experience. And you all will probably experience it in your life. So get ready. Life is full of suffering. But there's a way to suffer well, and there's a way to do it so that you are actually joyfully surrendering and kind of just carefree, not carefree, but like, you know what I mean? Life is so good, life is so carry on. I'm not dead. And God is so blessing you on every single step. It's kind of like those people, you all probably know some people who are just incredibly joyful all the time. Even when they're going through some of the hardest things you've ever, like you hear their story and you're like, how are you so joyful, right? That is what we should all strive to be in the world, to be witnesses to the fact that life is always going to have difficulties and we're always going to be carrying the cross, but that doesn't mean we have to be miserable, sad people. That doesn't mean we have to put the weight of that on every single person we meet, right? We can still keep our chins up, fight the good fight, and carry on as young Catholics in the world. So, I want to go into some practicals of ways that I kind of keep myself in check to live this way as a young adult in the world. Now that we can kind of understand the baseline of our mission and we're reminded of all the ways that we might be tempted, it's always good to have some sort of plan in place or like little checkpoints to check in on yourself. So I encourage you, after this, you guys go to adoration still, right? Perfect. I encourage you guys in adoration today to kind of just sit with some of the things I'm about to talk about and really look inward and just check in, see how you're doing, see if there's anything you can put into place, anything you need to journal about, etc. So number one, most important thing is to keep your heart as close to God's as possible, and that is through prayer, right? Pier Giorgio says prayer is the oxygen of the soul, and it's very, very true, as you all know. I recommend having some sort of plan because y'all know life is crazy and every day you have good intentions, but then someone else comes and like steals part of your day or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're going to bed and you're like, I didn't pray today. That's not good. So my best advice would be to cut out probably 2 times in your day that you're going to intentionally, maybe it's just 5 to 10 minutes that you're going to sit down in a quiet spot and you're going to just pray. Okay, whether that's in front of the Blessed Sacrament, or that's going to Mass receiving communion. You guys are living the dream right now, by the way. Don't take this for granted that you go to Mass and adoration every single day. I miss that so much from working at this job. But truth of the matter is you're going to go back into normal life in like a month or so, and you're going to have to be ready to have these things in place, right? Sometimes also when you go to adoration, you might not be motivated. You might not have like a prayer agenda, and that's okay. Sometimes you just need to sit and be with God. Someone once described to me, adoration is like sitting in the sun. The rays just shine upon all of you, and no matter like there's no clouds in adoration. You're just there, and the sun's going to shine on you. So just sit with that, and it's okay to not be able to say a lot. Sometimes God just wants to say a lot to you, right? The second thing is listening. This is a skill that I think a lot of people, especially in our generation, have not honed in on. And it is a skill that will change people's lives. I've experienced it firsthand. The power of making someone feel listened to and heard is something that can heal so many wounds and so much brokenness. My junior year of college, one of my internships for psychology was answering the suicide hotline. So I had Friday nights, which was a busy time on the line. And that was one of the most challenging things I've ever done. But I learned that most people just wanted someone to listen to them. They called in because they were struggling with suicidal thoughts at that time. They needed someone to talk to them. But 95% of the time, I was just like, wow, that's so hard. Like just talking through whatever they were going through. And people would break down and just cry because they had never had someone take the time to listen to their story. So when you meet strangers in the world, people who are hurting, just giving them your ear for a couple of minutes, asking someone how they're doing and actually waiting for a real response, not just, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? And then moving on, but actually having an interaction with someone where you're looking to give them space to let their heart kind of open up to you is so, so powerful. And I promise you, the more you do that, the more experience you're going to have where you're just like, whoa, that was so awesome. God was really present in that interaction, and I can tell that person really did that. So keep that in mind. The second and arguably one of the hardest things to do when you're talking about being in modern culture, this is the third thing, is making physical space. So we live in an overstimulated society, and most of that is because of, what do you think? Say it louder. The phones. Social media specifically, but just the fact that we all walk around this earth with a computer stuck to our hips and just everything at our fingertips at all times. I can tell you, the human brain was never ever supposed to be operating like it is now. And back in whenever they invented smartphones, I remember learning about this in psychology class. It's getting so bad that there are classes on the effects of technology on our brains. Not good. I remember we looked into a bunch of studies about the way it chemically is altering how we process the world. And disturbingly, when social media specifically was created, they hired a bunch of the top psychologists that they could find. And they sat there and they invented these apps to be the most addictive thing that they could ever create. Okay, so at this point, the level of dopamine, which is like a chemical in your brain that kind of goes off when something is satisfying, the amount of dopamine you're getting from getting likes on Instagram, from whatever else you want to do on social media, is equal to like doing cocaine. That's scary. That's scary. And like straight up addicting is what it is. Because your brain slowly, I'm sure a lot of you have had phones like when you were younger too. Like this isn't your first year maybe having a phone. Over time, little by little, you start to become so tied to it that it is like a drug. And you have to have it. And you go somewhere and you're like, where's my phone? If this sounds like you, take this as your sign that you need to detox, okay? I'm here to tell you it will be okay. No one actually will probably notice that you're not on Instagram. Yeah, you might break your Snapchat streaks. You might not make your Be Reels, but that's okay. You know, the world will keep turning. You will have friends, okay? You can call them. You can say, hey, I miss you. I don't want to just see half your face on Snapchat. I actually want to hear about how you're doing, right? I mean, what is with streaks? You can't even, people literally will send like the ceiling with like an S. They're like, streaks. What interaction? It's so pointless, guys. Just like drop it, okay? I'm obviously speaking from experience, okay? This was me in high school and honestly a lot through college. And then I just got so fed up with it and had some people say the things that I'm saying to you, and had some days where I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm just going to delete the app. I'm not saying you have to be so radical as to delete your whole entire account, but just try to delete the app for a little bit and see how much better you feel. Just try it. I'm doing it right now. Most of the summer, I've had no social media apps on my phone, and it is so freeing because I find myself when I want to kind of, I don't want to think about something that I should probably think about, or I'm bored, I don't know what to do with my life. I find myself going to my phone, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have social media. And then I have to put down my phone and actually be like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? And something awesome always ends up happening, whatever, and I actually spend my time doing something productive. So even if it's just like start with a week, just see how you feel. It might not even be, I don't think all of you have social media in this room. Does every single person here have social media? Okay, if you don't think you're out of this conversation, because I know you probably play video games, probably watch a lot of TV or something like that. There's probably some other thing that you're doing to distract away from things that you should be doing. So it's summer. Take a minute to get off technology and get out into the world, which is my next biggest piece of advice, is to be outside. Sometimes when life is very overwhelming and there's a lot of things coming at you, You just need to change of scenery. You just need to do something that you don't do every single day. So that could be stopping at a park on your drive home and just going for a 10-minute walk. That could be jumping in the Shenandoah River. Super fun. The water's really cool right now. Go fishing. Go camping. Like, I just spent the whole weekend with some of my closest girlfriends. We did a retreat, like, camping trip, which meant that we spent a lot of time alone, walking in the woods, praying. And it was the most freeing weekend because we had no cell service. No one could contact us, even if they tried. And we were just barefoot in the woods. Awesome life. You should try it. Maybe you're not all into camping. I don't know how this Libasci camping trip went this year. It was good. No flooding. No traumatic experiences.
Just smoke.
Yeah, there was a few years ago. It was like completely flooded out. People were like, "I hate camping." I was like, "It's not always like this." Yeah, the trains. That was thank you, Chris, for picking spots right next to a train track. That was fun.
Anything I can do.
Yeah, super peaceful that year. But seriously, you guys, I grew up at the beach. I love the beach. It's like fine or whatever, but nothing compares to the mountains and how many more options y'all have here. Okay, it was just like sand and water for me. This is like hundreds of miles of trails. You also have lakes and rivers and babbling brooks and everything. So before it gets cold again, get outside, plan something fun with one of your friends. I think when you put yourself under, like in a space that you're not overstimulated, you actually are able to hear God's voice. You notice things you don't normally see, like the tiny little bugs. You're like, how are you even alive? Like, you're so little. Where's your heart? I don't know. I don't get it. But you like don't notice those things if you're on your phone. You're just walking around. Okay, you have to like remove the distractions in order to see that. Another big distraction thing that we all like to do is to fill our spaces with noise at all times. I used to be this type of person who, like, I'd be home alone doing chores and I like had to be blasting music. I had to be listening to a podcast. Like, I could not be just silent with myself. And I had quite the gut check when I realized that I was uncomfortable being silent with myself. So if that also sounds like you, I just dare you to try to do things in a quiet way, and just see how much better you will feel. And you'll think through things more often, and you won't be as anxious because you won't just be bombarded by thoughts all of a sudden when you're like back into like reality. You can actually think through things when God gives you the time to, right? And then you feel a lot better in the world. So you should all be throwing away your phones after this talk, okay? Where's the trash can? I don't know. Like, if you want to just donate them to me, you can make some money for Sash. That would be cool. I want to read this quote. Do you guys know who Emily Wilson is? No one knows who Emily Wilson is. She's like a Catholic speaker, mom. You're making me feel old because she was like a big thing when I was in prison. Okay. She's blonde hair. She's super cool. Ironically, she posted this blurb on Instagram, but I saw it before I deleted the app, and I wanted to read it to you guys. This is one of the things that kind of pushed me into, I need to delete this because this is getting out of hand. So she says everything really well. That's why I'm reading verbatim what she said. She wrote, "I think social media is suffocating a lot of people to a figurative death. Death of creativity, self-esteem, of real, authentic joy they once had. Death of gratitude, of the amazing life they have, however mundane it is. 10-second clips are making it impossible for people to take the time necessary to form deep relationships with others and with God. There is so much noise, so many people saying things, entertainment, opinions, people clamoring for attention at every turn. I feel more out of place in this world than ever. Maybe you do too. I long for peace and quiet more than ever. Maybe you do too. I'm not looking for more distraction. I'm not looking for more things to numb me to everything. I'm not looking for another thing that would cause me to look back on my young life and think, tragically, sadly, devastatingly, I scrolled my wild and precious life away with distraction and reels and meaningless nothingness. I'm looking for ways to live in a culture that is trying to make sure I don't. To see people, love deeply, and rejoice with enthusiasm in each day God gives me and everything it brings. That's, I feel like, hitting the nail on the head. So if you're that person that's distracted and totally plugged in and scrolling your life away, today is your day to break free. Ask God for the grace to have strength in that. Breaking an addiction is hard to do, but it is one of the best things that you could ever do for yourself. Because once you can break those chains, you are so much more receptive and free to see the way that God is working in your life. Yeah? You guys feel motivated?
Yeah.
Good. Hey, it's hard. Like being a young adult in this world, being a Catholic young adult in this world, or even just a Christian, is like so hard because everyone feels like they're working against you. But I promise you, look around, you're in great company. Okay, you guys are in an awesome space. You're making friends. Some of you aren't making friends. You're making friends that hopefully, God willing, will be in your life for a good amount of time. And you're forming, you're learning things that you can carry with you as well, even when you aren't necessarily in this exact community. So be of good cheer, okay? The world is not going to fall apart. You guys can be the change, right? Our generation has so much power, so much joy and energy. Let's bring it, okay? And not give up the fight, okay? We can do this. I believe in each of you. I feel like I'm at like a youth day conference. Let's go. Do you guys have like the day is full like stories?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, let's just go. Let's go into Winchester.
James Foltz is never out. 100%.
Yeah, that is an awesome game. Way to go. Okay, that's all I have. I don't know where I'm at time-wise.
You're fine.
Do you guys have any questions? We can talk about anything. Does it just have to be this topic? Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of, I've heard people talk about like ways to get off your work. And one of the important things is if you take something out of your life, you need to replace it with something so you don't come back to it. Like,
Yeah.
what do you like for me, I'll go home, spend all day at work and really talk to people, hanging out with kids, doing theology generation. And then I go home and then it's like I have all this time to just relax.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what are things that you can do to kind of like where you're like not doing stuff, but you're also not just like sitting still?
Yes. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for that question. That was in my notes and I just totally skipped over it. Wasn't looking at them for a good portion. I was going to talk about that, and thank you for reminding me. The idea of using your gifts is one that we've kind of lost touch of. Father Juicerhouse actually gave his whole homily on this on Sunday. For tidbits from him. But y'all can't forget that every single person in this room was born with natural gifts that the person next to you might not have. And sometimes they're external. Like Mariana is an ice sculpturist. If you should ask her about it, it's really cool. But other people might be like just really good at making people feel seen. You might just be a really good, enthusiastic person in the room that everyone wants to have a conversation with. Whatever that gift is, and actually it's not just one gift, it's going to be many. You all have many gifts. Figure out what those are. Pray about it. And ask God to show you how you can incorporate them into your daily life. And that is what you should be doing after work. Okay? Let me tell you, work for a lot of us is just work. Okay? You might be blessed to have a job that fits perfectly with your gifts. And a lot of times your gifts are the things that will bring you joy. So you might find a job that just is like the dream. And every day you're like, this is just awesome. You also might just have a job that's very utilitarian. Like you just need money so that you don't starve to death. And that's okay. Both work. But it's about finding that balance to make sure that you're not suffocating when you come home from work. I think of my life, I can be kind of good at compartmentalizing. So I would like work, and then you come home and it's like 6 hours of like my life, basically, right? And that's what I feel with hobbies. So if you're looking for things to do, there's like thousands of hobbies you can take up, and they can be so simple, but they're oftentimes like a rejuvenating thing that helps you go into the next workday feeling more on fire. You have a follow-up?
Yes. Also, like, because when it comes to like, okay, like gifts and talents and hobbies, there's like that hurdle that there's like that hurdle of going from like used to just scrolling to actually doing something where it's like, hey, this thing I was doing before didn't require any effort. Now
So
doing something else requires effort. Even though it's fun and I enjoy it, it requires effort. So like how do you get over that hurdle?
That takes some time because remember you're actually trying to change your brain chemistry. And that's not something that is easily done. Like you're going to be kind of craving a dopamine hit from, scrolling. But I get that. Like sometimes you're tired and you're like, I don't actually want to pull out all my paint and paint a picture right now. But what can I do? Personally, when I feel tired and not super motivated, I try to find either a beautiful spot to just sit and relax and like read a book. I'll talk to my roommates, just kind of like be in community, call a friend, do something that feels more relaxing. And then on days when I am motivated, like let's go out in the garden and do some weeding, or let's paint, or do whatever. But it's a gradual thing. Like you're breaking a cycle of addiction, so you're going to want that back. And that's why I'm saying like start. You guys can wean yourself off. Like just delete one app today. Just detox from one app today. And then in 2 weeks, detox from another. And then another. And just slowly kind of detox. And like I'm not up here saying that like I'm completely against social media. I have social media accounts. I just am very, very prudent with when I'm using them and how long I'm using them for. So there will be months at a time where I know I need to put my focus elsewhere and I will just leave them off my phone. Like right now, I need to rejuvenate. I work in school. Summer's like the one time you get to rejuvenate. I don't want to spend my summer scrolling through Instagram. I need to like live my life, right? So that when school starts again, I don't like, explode with emotion. So it's not easy, but do a little baby things to get there. And over time, you'll find yourself not even wanting to. Like the other day, had to download Instagram to like show something to someone, and I was like, ooh, like instantly, I was like, I just don't even want to like be on Instagram. Like, I was like repulsed by it. And that was a cool thing. I never felt that before. So I was like, wow, this is great. Yeah, hope that's helpful. Yes.
Something, guys, if you're trying to find something you can do, reading a book, because it also not only is a good thing to do the pastime and the hobby, but it also does help to reprogram your brain to be more creative and whatnot, which will also help you find hobbies.
So true. Yeah. Books are magical. They really are. Yeah, Eve? Wait, please speak up. I'm sorry.
Like when you're talking at the beginning, you're like, I think it's right, like reading tasks and stuff. How do you know when something is really right? Like, you could have decent, good reasons to someone, but you know that things are really going to change. So how do you know when to actually decide that you're just going to
Yeah, great question. That can be hard to navigate. One thing I try to remind myself that I actually don't know if they will change or not. Because oftentimes we're like, they're never going to change, but God has worked some incredible miracles with people I know who used to be full-blown atheists and just like all of a sudden have this huge conversion. So to never doubt God's ability to actually change a person is kind of where to start. And then that brings me to the question, well, what do I do then? If I'm an instrument of God's peace and wisdom, how should I go about this? Let's say you're having a conversation with someone who is thinking about getting an abortion. That's like a huge call for you to enter here, right? And to really talk and sit down with that person and walk them through, first of all, coming from a place of compassion, asking them why they feel that way, why they're considering that, and then coming in with wisdom and love and saying, okay, well, let's think about it in this way. Let's think about things. Now, it might be different if you're walking down the street and you come in contact with like a pro-abortion like protester screaming with a megaphone in your face, right? Different type of conversation. In those situations, come back to the whole idea of not falling into despair and anger and trying your best to be firm, but also I just will speak simply, but profound. So just like have your keywords and like maybe you're only saying 2 sentences, but who knows? Those 2 sentences could really ring in that person's heart, and months later down the road, they might remember what you said, and they might kind of change their way of thinking. And there, you know, in that situation where there's a lot of anger and you're at the March for Life, or something, you're not going to be able to sit there for 2 hours having a full conversation, trying to like convert that person, right? You're probably going to need more of a quicker interaction. But any time that you guys come into contact with someone who is like directly to your face speaking something that goes against our like Christian values, Catholic values, that is an invitation from the Lord for you to shine your light. And it can be a word, it can be a sentence, but don't pass that up and say, no, it's just like, oh, it's uncomfortable, it's not my business. No, it is. God put that person in front of you for a reason. Okay? So I just encourage you in that way to like have those hard conversations when you can change lives. Yes.
I have 2 things. So the first thing is that I really, to what you were saying earlier about getting off social media and doing it slowly or whatever, it was really funny because during Lent, we give up certain things every day.
Yeah.
And one of the days is anything with TV or computers or whatever. So we gave up that. And every Tuesday, I found myself doing all of the chores, all of the things that I need to do, all the homework. And I was like, I'm so productive. And I would start doing like, oh, I'm going to take up knitting. I'm going to start crocheting. And I would do all these things. And then the next day, I'd be like, I'll do it next Tuesday. And I would just be like, oh, no, I have my phone and I can do that. And I don't really feel like making crocheting anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that like how different it is on the days that have that option of just going and spending your hours on social media.
Yeah.
So
Totally true. Yeah. It's like life sucking, right? That these social media people don't care about you. They don't, right? They're just basically trying to get it so that you aren't living your life. You're just trying to live someone else's life through a screen. And you kind of feel when you guys detox from this, you almost feel like you unlocked a new level of yourself. Like you are capable of so much more than you think you are in just one day. If you just aren't totally distracted by other things, right? Did you have something else, or is that you said 2?
It's kind of like you were saying about standing up for your faith, like if something happens. When it's on social media and like someone posts a video, like specifically the ones that I've seen are pro-choice things and like using examples that don't make any sense as to why abortion should be allowed. How much do you argue? Like, do you just because commenting is not the same as
talking
face to face with somebody?
Yeah. I don't. This is something I've struggled with because I just don't think that social media was ever meant to be a place of true community. Like, I don't think it's designed for true conversation to occur. It's a lot of like just putting what you believe out there and not really caring what the people in the comments say. Like these like activists on Instagram, I don't think they really like read through comments as much as we might think they do. I'm not sure. I'm not an activist, but like, that's something that is hard to navigate. I would say if you feel the urge, you can comment. Like, nothing's preventing you from commenting and just, I will pray for you. Like, pray for the unborn children if it's about abortion or something. But a lot of times your actions do speak louder than words. So if you do have social media, if you were to pull up your account right now, would I be able to tell that you are a Christian or a Catholic? Yes. Good. That's like a good gut check. Okay. If you have social media, right, and you're trying to like show who you are as a person in the world, and I'm a complete stranger, I should be able to tell that you believe in God, at least, that you just believe in God. And then what would be really awesome is if I could tell that you actually live a faithful life, which is more the approach I take. So I try to like repost Catholic stuff and quotes, and sometimes I'll even write some of my own thoughts, or just show different like feast days and things like that, kind of just through my own life being a witness. I think can help people more easily. You have something?
I was just gonna say that Ricky had a great quote. It was like, if you were charged with being Catholic, would they have enough evidence?
They have evidence. I remember that. That is a great quote. It's something to think about. Like, don't be fake. So, like, fakeness is so overrated, guys. Like, if you're gonna be all over social media and stuff, like, try at least to be authentic. Is it gonna be like the perfect influencer page? No, but you want to be that. No,
Who said that?
Chris. You don't. It's a sad life. Okay, most of those people are really, really sad deep down, and they're looking for like complete validation from strangers. Okay, you guys are better than that. So if you're gonna do it, be on social media, but like don't be an idiot, right? And don't be fake. Just show who you are, right? You're a good way, actually. If you're going to this in a test, take your bestie and have them go through your Instagram and have them rate like how closely this is to who you are. You might be humbled, right? But that would be because your best friend knows you, right? They should be able to like pick up on if this is fake or not. And if you're fake, then like let's bring it back to unedited photos. Let's bring it back to like poor quality pictures of like lame things. Okay, like look at this rock I found, and I think it's cool. Okay, he doesn't need to be like I went to Hawaii and everything is so beautiful and nice. You know, whatever. That's not real, right? Well, it is real for you, but it's not for me. You just compare yourself to those people. I think you were before.
Well, just another thing, seeing people like at least have something showing that they're Christian or at least Catholic or Christian. It's also just kind of hopeful. It's hopeful seeing that on the internet because I was just looking at this YouTube subscription, and at the very end you said like Christ is Lord.
So nice.
It's just
Yeah.
nice to see that sort of thing like that.
You're like my brother. Yeah. Yes.
You know, like Meredith, you're asking about like how to deal with like when it comes to social media, and I'm one of those people who not necessarily shy away from it.
Yeah, you definitely are.
Sometimes it's
She's a great Instagram, guys.
sometimes it's really fun to get into arguments and stuff, and like I have a tendency to get like too into things sometimes, so like I have to like recognize that okay, part of it comes to a feeling of obligation where it's like if I don't do this, I'm like enabling this person. But the reality is that you don't have a relationship with this person. If it is someone you do have a relationship, that's probably an invitation to meet up with them outside of social media.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, unless you can have a good conversation with them over, like DMs or something, or you know, you can text them. Like maybe your relationship with that person is good enough, but outside of that, I would say usually it's totally up to you, unless there's like a chorus of voices saying, "Hey, you should be posting this," and you just want to add your voice and say, "No, this isn't right." But if you do get into arguments with people, like I've had to tell myself, like it's so common to want to feel like you just want to have the last word, as opposed to like you're talking about how charity needs to be like foundational in all your discussions and stuff. And people talk about how like you don't want to be so focused on winning the argument that you lose the soul.
Absolutely.
So it's like you can't it's really easy to let your ego get in the way even when you don't realize, and it's like I just want to win the argument, and it's like no, it's okay to just not
about
respond.
it, right?
Yeah. It's okay to just not respond and to just let them say whatever. And you've said your piece and you can just let it go. And then if you do respond, make sure it's out of love of like, I want to say the right thing instead of I need to win an argument. And like recognize where you're coming from and whether or not you're getting too into it. And then you realize you're getting too into it, you can back off and be like, I'm gonna just let this go, make that the last word. It doesn't matter, I've already said what I need to say. And like it's kind of what we want to say.
Yeah. Another thing too that I recommend if you're someone who wants to use social media, I found it helpful to go through who you're following and like get real with yourself. Chances are you're probably following a lot of people that you don't need to be, and that's like your feed, right? That's like what you're consuming. So if you're following someone who's posting things that are tempting to you, things that go directly against what you believe in, that probably isn't someone you want on your feed. Does that make sense? So even if they're like an old friend, if they're posting like inappropriate pictures all the time, like you don't have to follow them. They won't even probably notice that you want to follow them. If they do and they care that much, maybe you weren't supposed to be like close friends. So I did that like a few years ago. I unfollowed so many people, and it definitely made. And then I followed a lot of people I really respect, like Aquinas and like all these like people who have great thoughts on being the world as a Catholic person. And then my feed slowly became more geared towards positivity and not like something that always sucks me down. So I just encourage you to like not be afraid to let go of those people, and to if you're gonna be on social media, to do your best to guard your part. I'm just gonna tell you, you're not actually going to be able to fully guard your part on social media, because we all know that algorithms are real and that they will just put things on your screen that you're like, I don't want to see that, like at all. And so if you're on social media, this is a chance that you are taking and a risk that you are assuming. So I'm just warning you to be really, really careful as young Catholics. You're kind of playing fire when you open up to like the discovery page, for example.
Yeah, I did that recently because there was a lot of random, like inappropriate videos popping up on a lot of social media. So I was praying about it, and I just, every time that I prayed to God, and I was like, God, please take this off of my For You pages or whatever, because I don't want to be seeing it. And every time it worked, and I haven't seen, like I barely ever see videos like that anymore.
That's good.
So I think it's a really good idea to pray about it too, because it works.
Yeah, but a lot of times it's God's probably going to say, well, you're the one who needs to like make the change as well. Like, you know, you're choosing to be in that position. Like the science behind technology is basically they look at your age. Your phone knows exactly how old you are, even if you think it doesn't. It knows your age, it knows your gender, and it knows the things that you're most interested in. And then what it does is it feeds you the things that you consume the most. So like, let's say you're into like fishing, or you got some fishing reels, you got some like mountains, you got some lakes, and you got something that's like out of nowhere, like highly guys especially. They know that you're a young male, and they're going to put a lot of really tempting content on your feed. And like, there's really nothing you're going to be able to do to stop it. They just know that's what the world wants from you. Girls, we get the same type of thing, but in different ways. You might get like these crazy models who literally aren't even like, they don't even look like real people, telling you what you should and shouldn't do with your life, and just make you feel insecure. And like, the rest of your algorithm might be fine, but those things are going to keep coming in because you're a young person and they know it, and they're trying to grab you. So there is a point, that's what I'm trying to say, like, you have to understand that you cannot control this. It's one of those things you are assuming the risks of it if you're going to partake in it. Okay? It's hard reality. It kind of stinks. Because Instagram was not like that back when I first got it, but it's just the world we live in now. So. All right. Have I gone way over? Probably. Okay. Great. Well, thank you guys for having me. I hope that you're inspired to make some